Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. This is something completely different, something I've never done before, but we're going to do it. Anyway, I'm doing a little preview of the 2025 Formula 1 season. So, how this video is going to work, I'm just going to talk about each team individually and the drivers, and just kind of what we can expect, what we can maybe expect, and my kind of opinions on things going into this year. So start off with Sauber, Kick, Stake, whatever you want to call them. It doesn't really matter at this point, to be honest, the future Audi team. So with Hulkenberg and Bortoleto coming into this season, I think it's going to be another tough year for Stake. I can't see them improving too. They had a little bit of pace towards the end of the year, so maybe that will carry over and they'll pick up a few more points. Hulkenberg, I think, will probably be the driving force in the team. I think he'll probably collect more points than Bortoleto. Not that Bortoleto is bad or anything like that. I think Bortoleto is probably one of the most promising rookies we've had in F1 for a few years, probably since Piastri, I'd say. So I think there's a lot of potential for him. I just think with this car being so awful, well, probably awful, or not too much better than last year, I think the experience from someone like Hulkenberg is really going to outplay a rookie like Bortoleto, because those moments to score points, I think, will be rare. And I think Hulkenberg's experience will just kind of help him out there. Overall, I do think it's going to be a very tough year for Stake, and probably more focus on to 2026 for them rather than this year. Next, we have Williams. Now, Williams is a really interesting one because the driver lineup is pretty good with Sainz and Albon. Williams struggled a lot last year compared to 2023. They were finished 7th in 2023, and they were on course to finish 8th. Then, of course, Alpine got that big point score in Brazil. So Williams, it's kind of hard to say. James Vowles has been very vocal, saying that the team's fully focused on 2026. So I don't think there's going to be too much development of the 2025 car. But then again, if you look towards like history, especially when the end of the regulation changes come in, things have always kind of bunched up throughout the whole grid. So maybe Williams can still score a few places higher. I think they will perform better this year. I think the car will be slightly better. Not even just the car, I think the driving will be better. I think Williams left a lot of points on the table last year. Not just Sargent, not just Colapinto, but also Albon. I think Albon was a lot of points on the table that he lost. I think it was a very difficult year for Albon. Sainz coming into the team is going to be a major positive for Williams, and I think Sainz will definitely outscore Albon, and I think he'll probably project the team up a few more places. So I think Williams will have a better 2025 than last year, but obviously they're focusing so much on next year that I don't think it's going to be a crazy sort of fighting for the high up in the points or anything like that, but I think they will perform better. RB Racing Bulls, not Visa Cash App Racing, whatever you call them. I think they're just Racing Bulls this year. So this one's going to be another interesting lineup with Yuki Tsunoda and Isaac Hadjar. So Yuki Tsunoda, let's start off with the obvious. Obviously had a very good year last year. Had some great races, some great points finishes, but missing out on that Red Bull seat over what it seems to be like mental strength. So an interesting sort of snip from the main team there. How will Yuki perform this year? It's a tough one. I think quite similar to last year. I don't think he's going to be too fired up and kind of using it to drive him. Very disappointed over losing that Red Bull seat, and I don't think there's going to be any kind of way in for him. I think the interesting part about this team for this year is Isaac Hadjar. I think Hadjar gets overlooked a lot. He's clearly a fast driver. He showed that in Formula 3 and Formula 2. A driver that struggles with his temper quite a lot, which we've seen. Very similar to Tsunoda, but it's not always a bad thing. He might have not had kind of the outright results throughout his career, but I think there's definitely a lot of pace from Hadjar, and I think he's going to surprise a few people this year. This could awfully backfire. But I don't think Hadjar will outscore Yuki, but I do think he's going to have I think there's a possibility that he'll have some performances that will turn a lot of heads and maybe even put him ahead of Yuki in that sort of Red Bull hierarchy. I think the midfield is so tight, it's so close, that I can't see them really getting any worse, but getting any better. So I think with RB, it's still going to be quite a similar. It's just going to be so tight in the midfield. It's almost impossible to say who's going to be performing better. Next, we have Haas. So Haas is another interesting one, where again last year the car was a lot better. It's probably the best Haas we've seen in a few years, and consistently you could argue that it was the 6th quickest car if it wasn't for Alpine getting that big kind of point score. So will Haas progress this year? Again, I think the midfield is just so tight and so compact that it's just, with all these teams, it's just going to be too close to call. An all new lineup for Haas this year with Ollie Bearman and Esteban Ocon. This will be an interesting lineup. I think this lineup will, I mean, they've already had to put protocols in place to avoid any sort of teammate friction. I can see this being quite a fierce rivalry. Ocon is fast, Ocon is aggressive, he's a good driver, but there's a lot of potential for Bearman. I think some people already expect Bearman to be in the Ferrari in 2 or 3 years' time, even though he's barely done any races. I think that's a little bit too early to say whether he'll kind of progress up to that point, but he's had some very strong performances. I think Bearman, I think this is a really close battle between the two. I think Bearman will come out on top, but I'm really not too confident of that. It's very tight. I just think it'll be a similar sort of year for Haas, similar sort of points finishes. Next we have Alpine. Wow, okay. So obviously majority of last year was pretty bad. At the end of last year, Alpine performed so much better with their new team principal, Ollie Oakes, as well, and everything just seems to be clicking in place for them. Obviously, it seems like they're going to be selling the team at some point. It's not confirmed, but that's kind of what things are getting hinted at for the future, obviously with the Mercedes engines as well. The driver lineup for Alpine is an interesting one as well, because it's probably going to change. Gasly is, again, already proven very fast. Definitely the main team driver, the first driver, whatever you want to call him. And I think he'll carry the team more than anyone else will this year. Jack Doohan, is Jack Doohan going to be there? I don't think so, not for long anyway. I think his future is it's already written on the wall. They don't want him. Colapinto is on a 5-year deal. He'll be in that car in a matter of races. Give it, I don't know, I'd say 5 or 6 races at best. And I think he'll be forced out with Colapinto taking his place. Obviously, I think it's quite unfair on Doohan. I couldn't imagine what it feels like to have all this kind of excitement going into your first year in F1, but already he's like, oh, I'm probably not going to be here for very long. But at the same time, do I rate Doohan as a driver? I'm not totally convinced. He had a very difficult or kind of anonymous race at the end of last year, and I'm not sure. He's had moments in F2 and F3 where he's been good. I just don't. Yeah, I don't want to say it, and I don't mean this as an insult, but I almost think it's a similar sort of pace of Sargent, that sort of level with Doohan. I hope he proves me wrong, and I really do, because I want to see him succeed. But within 5 races of his rookie season to impress, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think even if he does do it decently, he's going to be forced out, and Colapinto will be in the car. But how will Colapinto do? I think Colapinto, again, is a driver where he's obviously showed a lot of promise, a lot of speed. He's clearly quick. I think he's always been quick from Formula 3 upwards. And I'm glad he got his shot, because I think he was overlooked a lot through the rookie categories. Do I think he's going to outpace Gasly? I'm not sure. I think the thing is with these cars, it's so hard to say, because the points, the point scoring opportunities are so few that it only takes 1 or 2 kind of big point scoring to change everything. I think Colapinto still has kind of a lot of learning to do. Obviously, we saw him have some big shunts in the Williams at the end of last year. I think it's just a normal thing. I think this will smoothen out, and before long, him and Gasly will be kind of on it. Again, I can see this being another very close kind of heated rivalry between the two. Alpine as a whole, I think I can't see him doing on actual performance and pace. I can't see him doing much better than they were last year. Obviously, it was a bit of luck with the whole Brazil situation, but obviously, you know, they were in the place to count on their luck. So fair play to them. I think if there's not a situation like that again, I don't think they're going to finish 6th in the standings. The top 5 teams. Let's start off with Aston Martin. I think it's going to be not a great year for Aston Martin. They were pretty kind of out there last year. I can't really remember much of what happened with Aston Martin last year. I think the other teams just scored so little and so inconsistently that they managed to finish 5th. Yeah, I really can't see Aston Martin finishing as well as they did. I actually think they will slip down the order this year. I don't think they'll be the 5th best team. I think they're going to fall maybe a couple of places, and I think the other teams just have more consistency now than they did last year, and I think that will show. So I expect a worse year for Aston Martin, but I do think they're going to be more focused on 2026, obviously with new redesign in that car and whatnot. I don't think this year is going to be a huge sort of push for them. Do I have to state who I think is going to finish higher between Stroll and Alonso? I don't think so. I think that's pretty obvious. Lance Stroll will obviously score more points than Alonso. It's going to be a long year for Aston Martin fans. Pain. That's all I can say for them guys. Yeah, I just hope Alonso can do something. But yeah, it's going to be a long year for them. Next we have Mercedes. Another interesting case. Probably the most, I would argue, the most anticipated rookie debut at all, not of all time, but definitely one that has been for a while. This whole kind of top 4 teams is so close, so condensed. It's so hard to say who's going to be where, and I do wonder if we're still going to get this interchanging sort of like performance every kind of race where one team's better than the other and it kind of just switches all around. Mercedes, will they do as good as last year? I think Mercedes out of these top 4 teams is going to be the one that struggles the most. I mean, I think there's a chance they could be close with Red Bull, which I'll get on later. I think Russell will be as good as he was last year. I think he's kind of hitting near enough the peak of his kind of performance at the moment, and he's, you know, I can see him snatching up a few wins and whatnot. But I guess the biggest question mark is over his teammate, Kimi Antonelli. Very fast driver throughout the junior categories, obviously in karting as well. He's won pretty much everything. I do think a lot of people are overlooking Antonelli. I think a lot of people think that he's just going to flop, and I really do not believe that is the case at all. From jumping in from FRECA up to F2, I think that was bold. I think this is even bolder. But obviously he has some very strong races in F2. There were those little moments where you could see that, okay, this guy is good. This guy's very good, but just kind of not enough to string it across the whole year. But you could argue the same with Behrman. Behrman struggled a lot last year in the same car, but a lot of people hype Behrman up. I guess that's because he's already had his race debut in F1. I think he will do well. I think he's going to have a sort of, I'm not comparing him to, well, I kind of am comparing him to, but I'm not saying he is Max Verstappen. I'm just saying I think there'll be moments where he's very fast and he'll do some amazing things, but there's going to be a lot of crashes. There's going to be some big incidents as he just kind of, you know, he's got to learn somehow. But obviously with all this, it's going to cost the team points, and that's why I don't see Mercedes doing as well as last year. But I think for the future, he's definitely worth investing in and just kind of writing off this year in general. I don't think they're going to do much better than 4th anyway. So yeah, I'm very excited to see how Anthony will do. Red Bull, again, a lot of question marks over Red Bull this year. I don't think Red Bull, well, if last year goes by anything, I think it's going to be a very difficult year for Red Bull. Although they were looking a lot better towards the end of the season, I think it's an interesting thing because obviously with the flexi wings, I think Red Bull were developing it, and then the FIA turned around and said, no, we're actually going to ban the flexi wings after, I think it's like round 9 in Spain or something. So that's going to be interesting to see how that's going to impact the grid and the pecking order. I think, well, it's Max Verstappen. I think he'll drive the wheels of anything he's in. I think he'll still definitely win races this year. Can he win a championship? I mean, if the car is as inconsistent as it was last year, no way. I don't see there's any way. Again, I think things are so much closer. I think it's going to be extremely difficult for Max to claim a 5th World Championship. I just can't see Red Bull getting it together. I think the teams are just in too much of a mess. Not just, with performance, but I think there's like the mentality around the team is just not great either. And we saw a lot of kind of cracks last year, and I think that will just affect everything as it already will. Liam Lawson is an interesting rookie. Not really a rookie, half a rookie. We'll give him half a rookie. Mentally strong, yes. He's proven that he is fast. Is he like a world caliber driver like Max? I don't think so. Is he a good driver? Yes, definitely. Will he be able to challenge Max? I mean, if we go by anything in the last few years, Gasly, Albon, Perez, I can't see it. I can't see it. I mean, obviously with the car being probably quite similar to as it was last year, I don't think so. Will he do better than Perez? I mean, I don't think that's very difficult. I think he'll do better than Perez. I think he'll be a lot closer to Max. He'll definitely, I think he'll score a few podiums. Maybe, I can't see him winning a race this year. I think they're going to be closer to Mercedes than the other two teams, but they might prove me wrong. Maybe they'll be closer, and maybe Max will win a 5th. Who knows? Yeah, Ferrari. So Ferrari had a very strong end to 2024, and I think they're going to clinch both championships this year. This is probably a bold take, I can see Ferrari out-developing McLaren, and I think they're going to hit the bat from the straight off from the go, or definitely ahead of McLaren. I think they will be. In terms of drivers, controversial. Again, it'll be close, but I think Leclerc is going to beat Hamilton. I think Leclerc is in line for his 1st World Championship, which could be a bold claim, a bold take, but I'm just going to say it. Obviously, this is before testing, so this could end up, firing. This could be shit. This could be awful. This could be awful take. Hamilton is, again, very fast. He's no slouch. I'm not saying he's not going to be there. He hasn't fallen off. He is there. He is fast. He's quick. But this is Leclerc's team. Leclerc has been here for, 6, 7 years now, which is insane. And I think the way Leclerc drove last year, he's definitely, I would say he was the 2nd best driver last year. I think he was better than Norris last year. And I think Leclerc is kind of in his peak now, or just entering his peak. And a Leclerc, when he's fast and not crashing like he was last year, he's kind of smoothed everything out. He's going to be a very, very fast driver. And with someone like Hamilton, he's kind of had all his success. I think he's still hungry, obviously. I just don't think he's as hungry as Leclerc is right now. In general, he's just performing better than Hamilton right now, and I just can't see Hamilton coming into Ferrari, Leclerc's team, and outperforming him to a point where he can win a championship against Leclerc. I think it will be sort of close. I don't think Hamilton's going to be miles off or barely win any races or anything like that. I think it will be relatively close, but I can just see Leclerc winning this one outright. So I think it's going to be a very, very good year for Ferrari, but I'm sure that has been said many times in the last 15 odd years. Last but not least, McLaren. So I think McLaren are sort of flying under the radar a bit this year. I think they obviously had a very good last year, winning the Constructors' Championship. But I think people are so obsessed with Hamilton and Ferrari that people kind of just forget that McLaren existing at the moment, I think. Obviously, McLaren had a kind of... They benefited a lot from the flexi wing last year, which was legal. There was nothing wrong with what they did, but they benefited a lot from it. And I think teams now are developing it because they thought they couldn't, so that could close things up. I think things will be closer. I mean, things were already close anyway. I don't think that's going to change. I can see McLaren slipping back a little bit performance-wise, to be honest. I just think the others will catch up. But, nonetheless, I think McLaren are still going to have a very good year. They're definitely going to be fighting for the championships. Piastri, we'll start off with Piastri. I think Piastri he's a very good driver. He's got a lot of potential. He's shown many times that he's very quick. But I think there was a very interesting quote by Danny Juncadella, who is a racing driver, or was a racing driver in GT3s and whatnot. And he said one day Piastri is like Senna, and the other day he's like Kartikeyan, which I think is a bit of an exaggeration. But you can see that he has these moments where he's very fast, and then all of a sudden next weekend he's nowhere. We went from 1 minute, oh, he's going to be the leader of McLaren, he's going to take over Norris's place, and next thing you know, he's out in Q2 or whatnot, and or at the back end of Q3. And this seems to happen quite a lot with Piastri. Obviously, he's undoubtedly fast. I think the qualifying seems to be his major issue. You know, I think he will improve this. I mean, he has to improve this, right? Otherwise, there's no kind of way he's going to win anything. He has to fix his qualifying. Do I see this happening? I think it will happen. I think Piastri will be even stronger this year. Just not as strong as Norris. I think Norris just kind of has everything. He has the overall kind of package, where Piastri might be a little bit quicker in the race sometimes. I think, you know, Norris is just kind of has that consistency. He has that experience, more experience, and I think that will kind of prevail in the end. But yeah, I think Norris is going to have another very good year. I think he'll win. I think he'll win more races. Definitely be fighting for the championship. I think the championship will be closer. But again, with Ferrari, I just can't see him beating Leclerc this year. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. Let me know your opinions and your comments in the comment section and whatnot, and tell me how wrong I am, tell me how stupid I am, and we'll debate that out, and we'll come back to this video after the 2025 season. We'll see how wrong I was and how stupid I was. But yeah, like I said, I'm not going to create like a whole pecking order, because I think the midfield's just way too close to count. But let's just say Leclerc world champion, Ferrari world champions, and we'll leave it there. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.